Alright, before we start this video, I just want to announce that these Elder Scrolls 6 videos are going to become more of a consistent thing on my channel, so I've kind of done up like a big schedule of my uploads lately, and basically every Friday, you're going to be getting an Elder Scrolls 6 video. Woo! Sounds pretty good to me. I am a fan of that. That's great. I spent all of 20 minutes trying to make that schedule, that list last night, so hopefully it works out. Anyways, though, let's get right on into the video. So we're talking about, I feel like this is going to be a series. We're going to talk about some possible enemy varieties and even main story or storyline enemies that could possibly end up in the Elder Scrolls 6. And I want to focus this time on the Sload, because that was something that I covered on my channel fairly recently in my lore series, where I had talked about what the Sload are, exactly what they want, what they do, and why they're generally considered to be the most hated race in Tamriel. So that among itself is kind of interesting and makes them a surefire, awesome enemy to want to face. But I want to talk about the likeliness that they might appear in the Elder Scrolls 6 and whether or not they would be a good choice for even being a main enemy in the game. Now, the thing with the Sload is that because they're very aquatic, it kind of makes it so you get a bit more limited in where the Elder Scrolls 6 is going to be set then. So if we're talking about their possibility of being in the game, we kind of have to limit our locations down to maybe the Somerset Isles and probably Hammerfell. They seem to have historically the most interaction with the Sload as a whole. So that means that the next games are most likely going to take place at least in some capacity in those provinces in order to have the interaction needed if the Sload were going to be in it. Now, this is all speculation, and this is all like just a pipe dream. So we're saying like, okay, the Sload, if they're going to be in the game, it has to be in one of these two places, basically. And for the most part, I think that Hammerfell is probably the most likely place. As to how likely I think the Sload are to be in the game, I'm not exactly so sure. I think they're about as likely to be in it as, say, a bunch of Dwemer characters, you know? But that being said, it's never something that we can really rule out, because, say, they might not be, and they probably won't be, let's be real here, the main villain in the series. I can absolutely see them being possibly a DLC villain. This was actually a conversation I was having on my last video about the Sload, as well as over on my Discord server. They were saying, like, how likely is it that they are going to be a big villain in the next game? And I was saying, well, if they are going to be a villain, they're most likely going to be the main villain in, like, the big DLC for that game. That's the way I kind of see it. So the Shivering Isles equivalent DLC, or the Dragonborn equivalent in the Elder Scrolls 6, that's where I see the Sload having a major part. Maybe you go to Stros Mackay if it's in Hammerfell or something like that, and they have taken it over with all their necromancy and stuff. You're fighting off Sload and zombies and stuff. Maybe there's like one big Sload overlord they have to overthrow, or something weird like that. Because, as a whole, I think the Sload are a little bit too weird to be a main villain in the game. Most regular players aren't really going to associate with them very much, and as we all know, the best villains in any medium are usually the ones that you can relate to. Like, you can see their side of things and why they're doing what they're doing. With the Sload, they're so unhuman, you know? Like, they don't have emotions, they feign emotions, they fake them. Everything they do is for their own gain, not even the gain of their species, specifically for themselves usually, and that makes everything a lot harder to relate to. It makes it harder to build a game around. But then you take something like the DLC, and you have like a quest line that involves them, or maybe they're an overarching story in the new land and the new map that you introduce. That allows it to get a little bit weirder in the games. By this time, players have become a lot more accustomed to it, so you can introduce these little weird tidbits of lore that have been sprinkled out throughout the Elder Scrolls in the past few years. And that's where I see the Sload fitting in. Like, maybe your main character is done in by them, they give him an offer and he accepts unwittingly, then he has to go and right all these wrongs or something. Or maybe they're literally just killing all the people on, like I said, Stros Mackay, and you don't want everyone to turn into zombies that serve the Sload. I think that's a pretty heroic thing to go do. I would doubt that we'd end up going to the Sload homeland or anything like that of Thros, because it's just way too weird. I don't feel like Bethesda would put in all the effort to make all these new assets for the game and everything when they could just as easily use their existing ones and put it on an island off the coast of Somerset or Hammerfell, like I said. The other thing is, too, that Sload are generally very weak on their own, so unless they are summoning anything or using their necromancy, if you were fighting one-on-one and they couldn't do that, it would be a slaughter. Like, you just kill it instantly because they're very weak, they have low muscle mass, they can barely move when they're out of the water or anything, so if it were to be a case where they featured in the game, they would probably need to be like a boss character that you go through all these fights to get to. Then when you finally get to them, it initiates a dialogue sequence or something like that instead of being like a full-out fight with the Sload itself, because honestly, that would just be very boring. But on the flip side, having that different sort of boss fight where you are fighting the thralls to get to an end goal could be very interesting. We've seen it before in Skyrim. There's a couple of dungeons and stuff where, say, a bunch of skeletons or Draugr gets summoned, and then you fight through all those ones to get to the big baddie. The only difference would be that the big baddie would just be like literally a tube of butter. A tube of butter with an attitude. I think that's pretty much the best way to ever describe a Sload. So how likely do I think it's going to be for them to feature in the Elder Scrolls 6? I'm gonna say maybe like a 30% chance. They could definitely pop up if they were in Hammerfell or Somerset. If they were in High Rock, I don't really see it happening. Elsewhere, kind of the same deal. And of course, Blackmarsh if it were to be set there, which I don't think it's going to be. I don't think they have any real footing there or anything, so it would pretty much be null and a moot point at that point. That's a terrible sentence, isn't it? Anyways, though, that's my thoughts on the Sload. They're very interesting. I don't know if they're interesting enough to be in the base game. I could absolutely see them being in a DLC, though. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. I'd appreciate it. Let me know what you think about the Sload and any other topic requests for this series. Let me know those in the comments below. Thanks to all the recent supporters on VidMe and Patreon. If you want to support me yourself, those are the two best places to go do it. I would really appreciate it. Just throw $1 my way. It barely costs you anything. Helps support me a lot more than you think it does. Just trust me. I am PattyJack, and I will see you guys next time. Have a wonderful day. Oh, and join my Discord server, seriously. I'm there every day. Ask me whatever you want. You can go have a good chat or something.